Here we go. All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Enneagram Entrepreneur Interviews. We're doing things a little differently, as you can see. We are recording the sessions on Zoom in advance so that you can get the best integrity from the interview. We've just been having some technological issues with Instagram Live, unfortunately. So we're sharing in this platform. And today we are on episode 12, week 12. And I have Melissa Beaver of Willow Burl with me. And Mel actually interviewed with me for the Enneagram Mom interviews too, which I was so grateful for. And then the interview didn't come out technologically. So she was so gracious to come back and do this through the entrepreneur lens. So hi, Mel. Good morning. It's 8:45 Eastern time zone, and we're both in Eastern, right?
Yes.
Yes. Are you a morning person?
Yes.
So am I. I don't know if that's an 8 thing, but I think it might be. So Mel leads with the Enneagram type 8. So I'll start with that, which, you know, 2 8s here. We always tend to have great conversations when we put our heads together. So I'm really excited about this. But Mel, if you could just introduce yourself, talk about who you are, where you're from, your business.
I'm Mel from North Carolina, Statesville. It's about 40 miles north of Charlotte. No one's ever heard of Statesville. I own a small business, a small woodworking business called Willow Burl, where I create handcrafted treasures for the home. I have 3 little ones that are actually doing some virtual school in the other room right now. And yeah, so I run a business and mom and do all the things.
That's awesome. And so with your business, you're a woodworking artist, right? Like that, is that how you would describe? I describe you as an artist. I know you're a very modest person, but you are an artist. So can you talk a little bit about your wares, what you create?
Yes. Yes, I like the title artist. Sometimes I resist taking that title, but I really do love it and think that I am an artist in a way. I create spoons and spatulas and other serving utensils, as well as cutting boards and wall hangings. And the newest thing that I've done are sculptures. And they're all things that, they're all named after women. All my pieces are named after women, just to honor the strong women in my life. And I like to tell stories with each of the pieces and hope that when they then get to people's homes, that they can attach their memories and the story can continue. The sculptures have a lot of like emotion in them. And as an 8, that's something I'm a big feeler, but I don't want to share it. And so these sculptures feel like a way of like, hey, here's some of my feelings. And maybe you feel it too, and they seem to resonate with people. So those are some of the things I make.
Oh, I love that statement. That's so true. It's like putting your feelings into action through creating. And for 8s, we are of the body center of intelligence. And so our first response to stimuli is not thought or emotion, it is action. And so by tapping into your emotions through your action, I think that's a really beautiful notion and something worth considering for the body types that really need to slow down and tap into that emotion. So I love that. I love that. That makes me think a lot. And knowing you and knowing your sculptures, I see that. I really do. And your designs. So first, can you describe the process of creating a sculpture for me? We haven't ever talked about this before, and I told you I was probably going to go off script here, but I want to hear that. Like, what does that look like to design a sculpture?
I've never talked about this process before, so good question. So I usually sketch out things that come to mind. And I wish I were a really diligent person, a diligent artist that maybe gave time every day to sit down and think about what I need to make, or, let the creative process and all those things flow. But that's really not how I work. I'm too busy. I'm too busy to sit down and do it that way. So things usually come to me when I'm doing other things. I may be working or with my kids, or, on Instagram, or engaging with a friend, and something will come to mind. And the most recent sculptures are those hand gestures. And I think I just, like, somebody asked a question at the end of their podcast, which is like, what emoji do you use the most? I forget, it might be Justin Long or somebody like that. And so I heard that question. I was like, which one do I use the most? So I went and looked, and the middle finger's in my, like, it's in my most used. And I don't use it in like a mean way.
It's such an 8.
Yeah. So like, then I started thinking, like, middle finger 100% represents an 8. So I created that. I sketched out and I like literally, can I do the symbol on I literally took my hand and like laid it on paper and traced what that would look like. And then, I wanted to make like small versions of them. There's no need to be completely obnoxious with that. So they're little.
But you had like an Enneagram inspired sculpture series based on a question about an emoji. Yes. That is so creative. I love that.
It's crazy. I mean, and it just came, that idea just came. And have you ever heard, I'm sure you have, Elizabeth Gilbert talk about that, like it's in Big Magic, how the ideas are floating in the universe. And if you don't catch it, it'll go to someone else. And it's kind of woo-woo, but I'm very into that theory.
Me too.
Yeah. That idea just landed and I happened to be in the headspace to catch it. And so I ran with it. And so I made the only ones I've created so far, the middle finger, the peace sign, and the thumbs up. But
no, okay, wait. Peace sign is which type?
Two. Yeah. The
two. Okay. And then thumbs up
is, okay, we had to change one because you helped me.
Yeah.
So 7.
It was going to be this one, but that could be translated as not okay. It could be translated into a racist connotation, which is a new development and very unfortunate for that.
I think it's a 1.
Was that the one, the thumbs up? Yeah. Like the approval, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay, like full disclosure, as soon as she started posting these designs and assigning types to them, I was like, oh, let me help.
I'm so grateful. That's what I needed.
I inserted myself because I acted before thinking, which is what we do. So anyway, well, so you also do sculptures of the woman's form, which are beautiful and so thoughtful. And so, in terms of that, does that inspiration also kind of just like blaze into your head while you're in the middle of something else and you just kind of quickly draw a sketch, or what does that look like?
The female forms, I think I think this comes from, and I don't mean it to be offensive to anyone, but I grew up in the Christian faith, in a church that had a lot of rules. And I know not all churches are like that, but I experienced a lot of legalism, and maybe it's my 8-ness that makes me really push back against that. And I do not identify with any faith at this juncture in my life. So growing up, like I remember going to a youth pool party. I was new at this church. I think I was like a freshman in high school. And so we went to like a pool party and I showed up in a 2-piece and was immediately told that I had to like put a t-shirt on. And I remember feeling like so much shame because I didn't know that you were like, my mom didn't teach me that I needed to like cover up. And it's not like I was in the 9th grade. There wasn't much to show anyways. There still isn't. But, immediately like you put a t-shirt on because you were a distraction. And so I think the message I received there was that my body was bad. And I see that in women sometimes that have grown up in the church, that there's some baggage to be unpacked along the way, when it comes to your body and like physical affection and things like that. So I think that is where these forms came from. Like I remember asking like the interweb, like, what do you guys think of this? I can't explain why I'm making them. I can't explain the meaning behind them. All I know is that I am drawn to make them because to me it feels empowering. Like boobs aren't bad. Bodies aren't bad. Like, they're just not. And like, I have those sculptures in my house. My children don't think anything of them. You know, like, they don't feel that shame that I think some people do associate with that, you know, because
sure,
it's not going to be cool with everybody, and that's okay. I'm not trying to make art for everyone. I'm
sure.
trying to make pieces that speak, and for whatever reason, those boobs make me feel like, yeah. That's all I can say to it. It's just, yeah.
I love it. And so you get inspired and draw the form. That's the first part. And then I know that I've watched you. What you're really great about, I know you said earlier that you haven't really thought about the process because nobody's ever asked you this question, but you're really great about filming your process and sharing it in your stories often. And so what I see from your stories are the sketch and just kind of toying with the form. And then when you start to cut out the form, you often will play with it before really finalizing it. And I even remember that from like the palm frond looking design that you created. I mean, some of these are really intricate, and part of like the process, from what I can tell, is making sure they're sustainable and they're not going to break.
Right.
Like the strength of them too, right? There is some actual like technical thought that has to go into that because of physics and the fact the wood may not sustain, you know, where you have narrow cuts. So I see that. And then also the other piece that I see you exploring is texture.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
I mean, I probably saw it somewhere and thought I'll try this. And
so it's very action motivated.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
That looks good. I want to try that. That's different. I want to try that, and then make it my own. Because there's a lot of artists out there doing texture in different ways, like Grain and Knot, I think. She's like in Europe somewhere, and she has a ton of texture in her wood pieces. Annalisa Spoon and Hook, her texture is like resin, and all her pieces super smooth.
Oh, it's cool.
A different texture. I don't know. I just wanted it to be different, and I kind of like. Number one, it's very therapeutic, that repetitive carving. But also something that I've noticed, and I don't know if I've shared this to the world, but I had these two boards that I was carving, and one, I was in a like sort of frenzied mental state. And so the carvings are very aggressive, and you can see it. And then the next one I did, I was calmer, and it's smooth, and it's just a softer texture. And I was just, as I sat there looking at them, I was like, all right, okay, that's really telling. Like, I had a lot of feelings on this one, and then I worked through them, and now we've got this one. But I put them both out there because I think they're both beautiful, you know? So just texture is just fun. I'm just playing with different ways to add it, and I think it makes pieces unique and beautiful.
That is so powerful, and it's so true. I mean, you know, without going off on a whole nother path that I could really get into about the vibration of our energy, I will say that that's a very reflective understanding and processing of how quantum energy works in a very real, tangible, demonstrable way. Like the energy place, the vibration you were in one spot where it was reflected on what you put into your art, and then in another spot it was completely different. And so I love that you manifested your emotion through the texture in your pieces. It's cool, really cool. So, all right, core mission of your business. Can you talk about that?
Core mission of my business.
You don't have to have the perfect words for it, but what would you say the mission is for your business at this juncture?
I want my pieces to make people feel empowered. I mean, my mind immediately went to my tagline, which is creating handcrafted treasures for the home, which is true. I do want that. Like, I'm very nostalgic. Like, I love the thoughts of my kids growing up, and that spoon I've shared a bunch. The first spoon I ever made, it's what I always cook with. They know it's the first one I ever made. those cutting boards that I sip my coffee on every morning. Like, I just love ritual being attached to it and memory being attached to it. And, my kids get snacks for themselves and they're like, Mom, can I use this cutting board? And like, will they remember that cutting board that they like to use for their snacks? So when I'm making the pieces, that's what I'm thinking about, is I love things being passed down. And that's not something I have in my life. I don't have those traditions being passed along. They're starting with me. And so I want that for my children. They're very important. But then like the forms and the sculptures, I want people to feel empowered, and I get messages from women that are like, one day I'll tell you exactly how much these pieces mean to me, or will share that, they went through some kind of heartache and this piece spoke to them. And, it just, I want to give people maybe a visual reminder for things that are going on in their life, and, that we can do hard things. Like, I share my story, and it's not been an easy couple years, but like, I'm trying to find my way with my art and life and have all of those things interconnected. And I hope that's what's given to the people that buy my pieces.
I think it is. I mean, I only own like 100 of your pieces because I can't get enough of them. So I will say, shameless plug here, guys. Mel makes these really cool coffee boards, which you don't find a lot of like places or people that actually specifically make boards for coffee. And they are just really soothing in the morning. I like to cut an apple on one side and put my mug on the other. But they're just really soothing. And when I was at work, when I came back from maternity leave, I brought my coffee board with me because it was kind of an anchor to say, nope, you're still you. You still, like, this is still a centering ritual. And just because you're in another shift doesn't mean that, you've lost yourself. Like, it was really something very soothing. They are a great gift because they're unique. And I just did this survey about what brings people joy, and like 80% of the answers were coffee. So coffee boards there's something that really resonates with people about coffee, and coffee boards are a really neat enhancement to the morning ritual. So I love that you created that idea. I think it's brilliant. Everything you do is just really cool. And so I just want to say, check out the coffee boards. All right, let's see here. So can you just talk a little bit about your journey with the Enneagram? Like, how'd you hear and learn about it? And, where are you on that path right now?
I cannot remember. I feel like maybe some friends of mine introduced me to it years ago, when I was like actually still married, in couples counseling, and that was something that we were learning to try to help us learn one another. And so that's where I really started to study it. And I studied his number more than I studied my own.
As one might do. Yeah,
as one totally. But now, I deep dive into my number and ways that I can grow. I try not to use the Enneagram as a pass, like all those qualities that can be negative. I don't want it to be just like, well, I'm an 8. And I don't have that kind of personality anyways. I'm more like, oh, I'm an 8. And I did that again. Like, I'm kind of hard on myself. But it's been like maybe 4 or 5 years that I've been reading and studying and, growing. And I know all of my friends' types, whether they've typed themselves or I've guessed. I know you're not supposed to.
I like how you hesitated when they said that, That's all right. You're developing empathy for them because you understand they think differently than you. And there is power to that, whether you are correct in their type or not. Right. So that's something I want to point out.
Well, and the reason I really want to know is because I want to love them well, because the way that I want to be loved, or the way that it's easy for me to love others, does not always meet their needs, because I'm kind of a gushy person. Like, I want to tell you all the things that I love about you and put you up here. And not everybody needs or wants that or likes that. That's, and so I have to retrain myself so that I can look and think, what do they need? This is not about me. I want to meet their needs in being their friend, So it's just given me a lot of insight into how to receive people, and then a lot of grace for how people receive me. So it's been good for me.
Totally. That's great. And do you happen to know your subtype, whether you're self-preservation, one-to-one, or social?
I'm the counter type, so that's the social, right?
That's social. Yeah. Yeah. I was just curious. We won't get into that, but I was listening to some of the things you had to say, and it made me curious as to which one you are. Okay, so let's see here. How about your journey to becoming an entrepreneur? Can we talk about that?
Yes. So I went to college and got a biology degree. I wanted to be a PA, but that got real hard real fast. So I just finished school with a biology degree and thought like maybe I would come back to it later. But then instead I got married and found a really great job in medical sales that I loved. And so I stayed there for 10 years until I got pregnant by surprise, because children were never part of the plan. And then it was definitely never part of the plan for me to like come home. But when my oldest was maybe like 18 months, I just was like, I have to be home. Like, I have to be home. Like, I want to be with her. I want to raise her. And so I think I went part-time for a little while, and then I had my second one. And when he was 1, and so Isley would have been 3, I went back to work for maybe another year. And I was like, nope, I'm definitely done with the corporate world right now. So I came home and then had another child. And I think I felt very overwhelmed with motherhood, but also a little empty. Like, I loved motherhood, but it was not 100% fulfilling. I feel weird even saying that. Like, it's just the truth. Like, I needed more. And so I first started a business doing scripture cards, because I just said that I like grew up in the Christian faith, and we were homeschooled. So it was something that I used. They were colorful and fun, and my children loved them. So I made those as a business and marketed to like homeschool families. And then as I began to deconstruct my faith, that no longer felt authentic. Even though it was making money for our family, I didn't want to do something that didn't match who I was. And so my father-in-law at the time was a woodworker. He made these beautiful shelves for me. And I was just trying to think of a business I could start that was sustainable. And so I asked him to teach me woodworking, specifically a spoon. Like, we can do this, we can do this. We can make cutting boards, blah, blah, because he had a workshop, and he was just a great teacher. And he's like, no, we need this machine. We need this tool. And I was like, no, we don't, because I'm a wing it person. Right. We can do this, we can do it. Well, one day I went over there, and he's like, come out here, I want to show you something. And we went out to the shop, and like, he held up a spoon he had made. And he's like, are you ready to learn? And I was so excited. And that's when I carved my first spoon, which is just the worst, but she is determined to hold up forever because she knows how much she means to me. And then it just started from there. And Mark is brilliant, and he can take any idea, put it to paper, to scale. Like, he's really good at numbers and being precise. And I'm more like, this looks good. And he can take anything and make it come to life. And so he taught me so generously and let me use his shop for years. And we started Willow Burl, and the name came to be because my friend Joni is a designer, and she was looking through fabrics, and she kept pulling like words, and she found Willow and then found Burl. And I don't know if you know what burl is. The knot like that you see in trees, it looks like a growth. It's kind of ugly from the outside. It looks like a blemish on the tree. But when you cut it, it has beautiful wood grains. It's like a treasured piece among woodworkers. And so the name Willow and Burl, the business, all came to life in 2016, and it's just been going since.
That's such a great story. I love that. And yeah, I don't think a lot of people do know what burl is. And so I think that's important to share. And thank you. Thank you for that. That's awesome. So when we talk about core motivation of a type 8, we've talked about a little bit about the idea, and we did preemptively talked about this, the idea that the 8 likes to be in control, and we get mislabeled here, like that immediately assigns us to control freak or dictator or whatever, and it's really not that. It's not the desire to control everything. It's the desire for us to be in control of our person and our lives, and as a result, we often reject when others try to control us even more strongly than maybe other types on the Enneagram do. Because I don't know a lot of people that like being told what to do, but 8s like physically and actively reject it very often. We're not the easiest types to manage at work. Yeah, it's really good when our managers are not micromanagers and really bad when they are. But anyway, so, understanding that core motivation of the 8, and it's really a protective mechanism, right? We're just trying to protect ourselves, and then we also project that and try to protect others too. How does that core motivation come into play with your business? Like, what are the strengths that offers that really help your business, and what are the challenges that presents as well?
I mean, the positive thing of owning your own business is that you don't have to answer to anyone. I don't have to apologize for making boobs to anyone because it's mine.
Yep.
I can't think of any negatives. It's just good for me to, in this business, be in charge. And Mark's the one that taught me everything. And, I have no problem learning from others, working with others, but compared to my corporate job, like, as you were saying, we don't like to be managed, especially if our managers are micromanagers. Like, I remember loving my job so much. And at times my manager could be a micromanager. And I can think of multiple times that I had to go and be like, I'm sorry, I was so aggressive, because I think I'm a good worker and I'm working hard. So if you come in and tell me all the things that you don't think I'm doing, I'm going to push back on that.
Right.
And so, yeah.
Well, and it's like, we're tough, so we can take feedback when we've invited it.
Yes. Yeah.
And when we haven't, what people don't realize about 8s, because it's our best kept secret, is how so deeply sensitive we really are. That's why we are so tough, right? We have to very instinctually, that's where we get of the body, protect ourselves. That's the defense mechanism that served us at some point when the world got to us, right? We have to protect ourselves, and we do that through denial. And it's not just denial like, no, I didn't. It's also denial of our emotions, right? We're like, we don't feel sad. We don't cry. But yes, we do a lot on the inside. And sometimes on the outside. And when we start crying on the outside, it just really escalates, and it's just tragic because it just all comes out. And so the reason that we have this strong urge for denial is because we don't want to tap into where it hurts, because we've been hurt deeply. And that creates, and it even makes me tear up just talking about this. I'm noticing this as I'm talking, but we've been hurt so deeply that we create this shell so that we don't have to experience that again. And then when we see others that we can tell have been hurt deeply or are being hurt deeply, we take our shell and we put it around them too. And that's what we do. And so when we receive feedback or criticism that has not been invited in or we're not prepared for, we get mean.
Yes.
We shut it down.
Yes.
Shut it down. And my mom says, my words are like daggers when they want to be. And that is true. I have sharpened those knives. I'm working on putting them away and letting them dull and rust a little bit, because they aren't always necessary. I think if somebody messed with my kid, that would be a dangerous territory. But just commenting on that, I don't think people know that about us, know that about 8s, that how deeply sensitive we are. And it's really hard to be a female 8 in a corporate workplace. So like you telling me that you had to apologize for being aggressive made me sad, because no man would go back and do that unless his job was on the line.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
And I've learned since then. I was young then, and I worked for a woman, but that's probably not something I would do now.
Yeah. Yeah. So, okay. So that's super helpful information. Thank you for sharing that. And yeah, I love entrepreneurship because ain't nobody telling me what to do unless I want them to. So I'm like, can you give me a deadline? I just really need a deadline. Right now I need a manager. So just go ahead and toss that out there for me. Anyway. Okay. So, well, we're getting close to the end here, but I would love for you to share any one or two specific things about your business that are coming up that are really cool. You've already kind of talked about the Enneagram hand gesture series, which I think is so cool. But anything else you want to share?
I don't know. I mean, I talked about like that all of my pieces are named after, they're either strong women in my personal life or, throughout history, famous women that have done something that I think is meaningful. But the reason that came to be is because when I was going through my breakup, the dissolving of my marriage, I found that it was women that carried me. And I wanted to create pieces that honored them specifically. So at some point, I've made a lot of pieces over the years that are not still available, but at some point there's been a piece named after every one of my actual friends in my inner circle. And as I make those, I can remember specific things that they've shown up and done during my times of despair. And so those pieces, the things I create, their purpose and meaning is to lift other women up. And if nothing else, I hope that's the message that my business conveys, is that I'm here to lift you up. I'm not competing with you, whether you're a woodworker or just another female, whatever. If we're in the same lane, different lanes, like I'm just here to lift you up and push you along. It is my natural inclination to put the strong women in my life, strong and not so strong women. You don't have to be strong to be in my life, but I put them here. And my friend Joni said to me years ago, she's like, you hold your people high, which is both a blessing and a curse.
I agree. And I can relate.
But, I hope my pieces make women and men feel empowered. But my journey is to encourage women because they're the ones I see hurting. And they're the ones I'm drawn to. So it's not to exclude any one person here or there, but my journey is to encourage women in this space.
Love it. And real quick, let's talk about, like, people are going to be really interested in shopping your site. And I know that what your rhythm is for selling your wares is typically you have shop updates about once a month. Is that right? Something like that. And guys, Mel sells out pretty quickly. And so if you visit her website and you see something you like and it's sold out, she has shop updates on a monthly rhythm because she's a one-woman show. And so she's creating these by hand. And so if you don't find the thing available that you want, follow Mel on her Instagram handle, and she posts every time she's going to have a shop update, and just set your little timer, because they're typically on a Sunday at noon, right, Mel? That's typically when I see them. And set your timer for like noon on a Sunday and go jump on and grab what you want. So, and then you also do pop-ups and locally and so forth. And so people can find you, supporting local businesses and selling your wares around the Statesville, Charlotte, Asheville area, right? Cool. All right. So having said that, where can people find you?
It's willowandburl.com is the website. And I'm only on Instagram, and it's Willow and Burl. So I post about all of my updates on Instagram. So if you follow along there, then you'll know. Yes.
And side note, Mel's a photographer. Her handle's beautiful. So if you like aesthetics and you don't really need any woodwork, follow her anyway, because her pictures are really pretty. Yes. Well, Mel, this is, it's always fun to talk, and I really appreciate you giving of your time to connect with me on this platform and share your story. And I think it's going to resonate for a lot of people, especially female eights. We need to hear from other eights that it's okay to be vulnerable. And I love that you channel emotions through art. I think that that's a really beautiful thing for consideration for anyone. So thank you for your time today.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Absolutely.